In this lecture, we'll be focusing on surface EMG applications in biofeedback. We'll work on developing an understanding of how disorders within the skeletal muscle system profoundly affect both the mind and body's sense of well-being. Surface EMG biofeedback techniques fall roughly into three clinical entities: downtraining for relaxation or deactivation of the autonomic nervous system, uptraining, and coordination training. Neuromuscular reeducation typically involves uptraining or coordination training. It is typically used by occupational therapists, physical therapists, and other professionals of the body to help people who have lost the proper use of muscle functioning. The word psychophysiology involves some kind of connection between the psyche and the physiology. There is an emotional layer to muscle disturbances, some of which can be traced to aspects of hyperactivity. Muscular disorders can be divided into four categories, and your reading assignment for this lecture will cover these areas in more detail. Histology is the study of tissue. Psychology or psychophysiology is the study of mind-body interactions. Sensory motor dysfunctions involve movement disorders, and mechanical dysfunctions can be brought on by trauma, repetitive use, or postural problems. The treatment of tissue-related muscular dysfunctions go back to the times of antiquity. Many of you are familiar more recently with Swedish massage, which was developed in the late 1700s by a Swedish gymnast and athlete. Ida Rolf developed a system called structural integration. She had her PhD in biochemistry. Janet Travell developed the concept of trigger points. She was the first female physician to a president and treated John F. Kennedy's chronic back pain problems. Her work with trigger points was taken into the field of surface EMG biofeedback by Stu Donaldson. In the field of psychophysiology, William James put forth the concept of ideomotor theory of emotions. This theory stated that complex and meaningful movements can occur without volition, without us being conscious of these movements. The theory was further developed by imagery activation theories. We can see an increase in muscular activity just by imagining the activity. Many of you often see that you get tense just thinking about something you have to do, and your muscles might actually activate for that movement. The idea that the mind and body are connected is brought forth in these concepts. But what is also indicated is that the body can profoundly affect the mind. Edmund Jacobson found that deep states of muscular relaxation were incompatible with anxiety. As I told you in Lecture 1, George Waitmore was a student of Edmund Jacobson. He went on to embellish Jacobson's progressive muscle relaxation technique by adding an analog audio tone or feedback during the surface EMG signal. The study was conducted by Waitmore and Coley in 1974. In some ways, Waitmore can be considered the first to use a surface EMG biofeedback instrument. Waitmore's book, co-authored with Coley, entitled The Psychopathology and Treatment of Functional Disorders, set forth a thesis that all psychosomatic disorders are due to dysfunctional muscle efforts that he termed dysponesis or bad energy. Autogenic training, a more cognitive approach, was developed in Germany in the 1950s by Wolfgang Luth. He had an intense interest in hypnosis and its effects on the human body. After studying a series of key phrases and their impact on the body, he discovered that the key word for the neuromuscular system was heavy. The phrase autogenic means self-cleansing, and autogenic training was designed to elicit both emotional and general physiological relaxation. The Rosen method is distinguished by its gentle, direct touch, using hands that listen rather than manipulate. A Rosen practitioner focuses on chronic muscle tension. Often as relaxation occurs and the breath deepens, unconscious feelings, attitudes, and memories emerge within the session. In the area of psychophysiology and physical therapy rehabilitation, some prominent names are John Basmajian. Both his 1962 book entitled Muscles Alive and a book entitled Biofeedback, Principles and Practice for Clinicians, published in 1979, compiled a great deal of information on surface EMG biofeedback. During the late 1980s, Donaldson normalized his surface EMG recordings by calculating the degree of symmetry for homologous muscle pairs during dynamic movement. Donaldson popularized the concept of co-contraction. Susan Middow came to the conclusion that almost all of the dysfunctional patterns in the upper back involve hyperactivity of the upper trapezius. Much of surface EMG biofeedback used for general relaxation uses upper trapezius surface EMG placements for the EMG sensors. Stephen Wolf set up the Surface EMG organization, and Bruckner used surface EMG neuromuscular therapy, which was aimed at returning and improving voluntary muscle control.